Today in Hawkeye's House of Horrors, I'm going to bring to you the third entry in Lucio Fulci's The Gates of Hell trilogy. It started with City of the Living Dead. I'm going to talk about that film a few times or mention it a few times. I'm just going to refer to it as that name. But started with City of the Living Dead, went to The Beyond, released the same year as the final one. I'm going to do a review for the Beyond as well, fairly soon, I hope, leading to the final entry, and that is The House by the Cemetery. All done by Lucio Fulci, all done in succession, I believe. But I'm going to talk about this film here. Now, it leads into a story about myself and seeing Lucio Fulci for the first time. When I was a kid, I literally had never heard of this guy. When I was a kid going to the local video store, there really actually wasn't a whole lot of Italian horror films available. The ones that were generally, if I remember, like Dario Argento or Lamberto Bava, their films. So I didn't know anything about Lucio Fulci's films until I was actually approaching my 30s at the time and was reading up on a bunch of movies that I hadn't seen before, investigating films. And I came across Fulci, whose nickname I believe is the Godfather of Gore, which is an excellent name for him. But it was one night after work on a Friday. I was at home and I thought, okay, this is the time I'm going to get into some Fulci movies. So I started off, I watched Zombie from 1979, a couple of years before this one here, and finished with The House by the Cemetery. And absolutely, I really enjoyed both. Um, to be honest, I think Zombie definitely is one of the more well thought of Fulci films, but The House by the Cemetery, I've always really enjoyed it. Now, the story to the film was done by Elisa Livia Briganti. She wrote a bunch of other films through her career. Um, Certainly, definitely during the 80s was, I guess you could say, the highlight of her career. But she also worked on other Fulci films, including Zombie and Manhattan Baby. Now, the screenplay was written by her husband, Giordani Sacchetti, who wrote many, many horror films through his career. I've seen a few of them. I think I've enjoyed all the ones I've seen him right around, if I remember correctly. But as well, he wrote been involved in Fulci films as well, including The Psychic, The Zombie, and The Beyond, as well as Giorgio Mariuzzo, who also worked on The Beyond and Enigma, as well by Fulci, and Lucio Fulci as well is in on the screenplay. Now, supposedly it is based on or inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, which I seem to remember that may have been inspired the other Gates of Hell trilogy, all three of them. But I definitely, because I'm a big fan of it, definitely a big fan of the film as well as the novels, very good as well. But to me, it's got inspirations from Stephen King's The Shining as well, which was that film came out just a year prior. But just things I'll mention that I picked up on. Um, the fact that the film is in a haunted building. Um, Dr. Boyle even fires an axe through a door, much like Jack Torrance did in The Shining. Although, after he does so, it's got a very City of the Living Dead feel, as it just narrowly misses his son's face as it comes through the door. As well as Dr. Boyle conducting research, as Jack Torrance did, which was much more apparent in the novel, um, as well as there being a family of three, much like the Torrances in the Shining. So maybe I'm wrong, but I feel there's an inspiration or a leaning towards The Shining as well. Now I hope I've done my math correctly here on this one, but this film at the time had a budget of 600 million lira. Now, in looking that up and transferring that over to American dollars, we'll go with that and putting it forward to today's time, that being 2024. Um, the box office made 1.408 billion lira. Now that's equivalent to 1.3 million at the time, or today would be $4.5 million. That's not bad on a budget of like $500,000. That's quite good. It was released on August the 14th, 1981 in Italy. I think it wasn't released in the States until 1984, if I'm not mistaken. But this film is definitely on that infamous video nasties list as well, which a lot of gory films, horror films generally of the early 80s were on that list. I'm going to try and quickly go through the story of the film. And I must admit, the second time I saw this, the story seemed a little almost incoherent, a little bit. It was a lot more of the style, the gore, the kills. That is what was coming out, as well as the music. It's got great music, which I'll get to a little bit later. Um, but the story sets up, or the film sets up, with this young couple chilling out, getting it on in this cobweb ridden house. Then, quite quickly, they are murdered. We are introduced to the gore extremely early in this film, which is great. Um, to me, there's also a very interesting kill that really grabbed me the first time I saw it. It's with Daniela Doria, who was also in City of the Living Dead, who may be in one of the most infamous kills of all time in that film. But in this one, a knife is shoved through her head by this unknown killer and it comes out her mouth. So it's a great gory visual opening to the film. And it sets up the rest of the film quite nicely. Um, Starts off with a bang like that. And as I said, it does it in an extremely quick fashion. It seems like 3 or 4 minutes in, bang, that's all has happened, and you are on to the rest of the film. So then we're introduced, or we have Dr. Norman Boyle, played by Paolo Malco. He will actually be in Fulci's next film, The New York Ripper, which I've seen once. I enjoyed. I can't wait to see it again. It was released the year prior, in 1982. Uh, from what I remember, he's researching old houses, I think, for a university. I think. Anyways, the important thing is he's taking over for this other guy, Dr. Peterson. What did he do, you may ask? He murdered his mistress and then committed suicide. No matter. This is just an early 80s Lucio Fulci film, so nothing's likely going to happen here, right? And as well, the Boyles are moving into the same house that he lived in. Is that a bad sign? Of course not. Why worry about that? So along the way, we have his wife, played by the lovely Katrina McCall, who was also in City of the Living Dead and The Beyond. She was in all three of the films, which is great. She's great in each of those films. Interestingly, it's kind of out of left field to me a little bit, but it works. Like, it's shocking, sort of. She finds the grave of Dr. Freudstein, who was, this is his house. She finds his grave inside the house. And then there's their son, played by Giovanni Frezza, who through his acting career, he was a kid actor. From what I remember, I don't think he did anything beyond being a child and acting, but he was in a number of horror films through the years, generally Italian horror films like Manhattan Baby, A Blade in the Dark, and Demons as well. His character, though, Mio Mai, you picked this up quite quickly with him. He's very whiny, very annoying. And personally, I don't put that on Frezza, the actor. It's on the person who dubbed him. It's dubbed in a way to be very whiny, very annoying. Um, it's an interesting choice because usually that will get on my nerves, and it kind of does with this, but somehow it still works because he's in some really cool, like maybe the most memorable scene. He's in it. I'm going to get to that later. I find it funny though, even at some point in the movie, his mother, thankfully, she tells him not to whine, but unfortunately, it doesn't come to any good. He doesn't listen to his mother and continues to be quite whiny. So, in the end, it is Dr. Freudstein who is needing victims to kill off to stay alive in this maggot and worm infested body that you see at the end of the film. Um, but in saying all that, there's really just one step you need to follow rather closely. Don't go in the basement, but they keep going down to the basement, and horror ensues once that happens. Now, the end of the film, I saw this maybe a week ago, but it comes to an ending. I always forget it comes to at the end of the film, and it's not exactly what I'm expecting. I enjoy it, but it's Bob being saved by his friend, May, played by Sylvia Colatina. And they're led, or he's led rather, into this ghostly world or ghosts to live with the ghosts, I guess, like of Dr. Freundstein's wife, and she plays his child into this other world. He loves to be there. He wants to be there. It's like his paradise, really, to get away from it. So it's kind of an interesting ending of the film, and it works for me, but it's not expected when I watch this film. Now, there's great gory special effects done here by Mauricio Trani, and he worked on other Fulci films as well, including Don't Torture a Duckling, Zombie, and The Beyond. And when I get to The Beyond, um, those visuals are whoa, right in my mind. Those special effects. And since it's a Fulci film, things are graphic, things are gory. There's no let up in the kills whatsoever. They're right there for you to see close up, um, and it certainly becomes one of the more memorable things about the film is the gore as well. It also has great music by Walter Rizzati. Um, he did a lot of, I think, through his whole career, he did Italian films. One I did see that he did the music for was also 1990 Bronx Warriors, as well from the 80s. Now, with the music, I wrote down the keyboards give the music a very gothic feel, matched with the vocals, and it really comes across as a plus to the film and blends wonderfully with what Fulci's putting on the screen there for you as the viewer. Now, in this film as well, and I must say, maybe I'm wrong. I think a lot of horror Italian directors did this, but there's a lot of close ups of the characters throughout the film. And at times it can be like very like jaw droppingly odd or take almost takes you away from the horror sometimes, but here it adds to the quality of the film and adds to the terror and the tensions that are created. Definitely, I like the fact that a lot of the horror in the film takes place in the basement. As I said, that's not where you want to go. Don't go to the basement. I really enjoy how a lot of the horror takes place down there. The basement even comes with a nice, spooky, massive key that doesn't work very well, as well, of course. The basement also comes with a vampire bat. That leads to a scene in which the bat has landed on Dr. Boyle's hand and he's chomping on him rather viciously. And we then have a nice blood soaked scene, which Dr. Boyle is using a pair of scissors to stab this bat that is latched onto his hand to death. Um, and wow, there's too much blood coming out of that bat, but that's Fulci. That's how that goes. Um, and there's a weird scene in this. It's kind of offsetting, I'd say. Maybe that's the whole point behind the scene. But there's a scene of Bob who's sitting in a car, which with I think the window rolled up, talking to his friend May, this mysterious girl who shows up and is communicating with him and him alone. She's way, way, way across the street, and they're having a conversation with each other, yet neither of them are yelling. It's strange. It may have been there to maybe put maybe a supernatural feel to the film. I don't know. It's kind of works. It's kind of a weird scene to me, but thought I should just mention that as well. But I do like her character. Um, it's Fulci did a very good job in having that seared into my mind, like her scared, terrified face of this innocent child who knows a lot of secrets or has been through some horrible things. Um, it I really like the look and how that character came across. And I thought it was rather hilarious. I laughed out loud when I saw this. When the redheaded real estate agent, I think her name was Laura something, sorry, don't remember the last name. She was played by Dagmar Lysander. She's leaving the new home that the Boyles are in, where Dr. Peterson was, the Dr. Freudstein home. She's leaving there and she runs over a tombstone and then says, "Damn tombstone," and then drives away. It makes me wonder if that was actually part of the script at all, or is that there for us to give us a reason as to why they're people coming out of a grave because she ran over a gravestone? I don't know, but it's really funny to me. Now, one thing I really grabbed onto in this film, and it's kind of with her death, uh, it came across to me with not just this film, but really all of Fulci's, not all, but a lot of Fulci's more famous horror films. Um, and it's something I really enjoy, and it is the kills that come to a Fulci film. I think that's maybe why people run out and see his films, is for that reason. Um, I wrote this down. As, to me, as a horror lover, um, these kills, they're almost done perfectly in an over the top manner, if that makes any sense at all. The victim is usually helpless or acts extremely helpless, um, and then things are slowed down to make things really as unnerving as possible by Fulci, to really grab that viewer and make them not comfortable at all. Um, like for example, when this real estate agent, she is killed, you then see her stabbed like three different parts of her body, rather graphically, rather gruesome, and it's very memorable. Now, this process is not new. You can go back into, certainly for me, it may have been Dario Argento's films where I was like, okay, that's new, that's different, that's not an American or North American way to make a horror film really like that. And then I could see what it influenced later. But if you step back even further into Mario Bava films, it's everywhere that. But I think Fulci takes it to the next level, or really pushes the boundaries on how far can you take this scene? How far can I slow this down? And how far can I extend this to show these horrific images and have that scene still work to horror lovers? If you're not, you're going to run for the exit, no doubt. These are not, Fulci films are not for like a middle of the road person. They're definitely for gorehounds, I guess, people that enjoy that. Now that, like myself, there are gory films that I don't enjoy. Um, it's not like if it's gore, therefore it's good. But um, I really enjoy his films, and that was one thing that I grabbed onto that I thought I should share about his films, as to what I like about him. And I don't like every Lucio Fulci film. Um, Definitely through the 70s and maybe like the beginning part of the 80s. He was consistently making very good films. After that, I'm not saying they were garbage or not worth it, but there might have been a step down after that. But, anyways, that's here nor there. It doesn't much matter. Now, as well, I find this film has kind of a low body count if you count the kills that happen on screen. Two characters. For a film that is so gory, I thought that was quite interesting. Is in comparison by perhaps by the late '80s, if you know, if you're gonna have a gory film, there's gonna be a ton of kills in it. Now, the one scene that I'm gonna say it's my favorite in this film, and the one scene that stayed with me since the very first time I saw it, is a scene in which Bob is trapped in the basement where all the horror is, really. And he's trying to get out of the basement, climbing the steps, banging on the door. It seems like for like 20 minutes to get out of this basement, help me out of here. And you see Dr. Freudstein uh, rising or coming to get him. Um, I remember the first time I seen this, I thought this was a very good film. Uh, And then I saw it again maybe 4 years later, and I was like, what do I remember from it? I remember I really enjoyed it. The music's really good. It's gory. And then I remember this scene, Bob trying to get out of the basement. The rest of it, I didn't really quite remember it, but I remembered this scene. While he's trying to get out of the basement, his mother, played by McCall, is on the other side of the door with the key, turning it slowly, using a knife to turn that key slowly to get that door unlocked so Bob can rush out of there to safety away from this monster that wants to get a hold of him. But of course, the key breaks, um, and then she like hammers the knife into the door to try and pry it open to get Bob out of there. And then, blink, of course, the knife breaks next. And then Bob says he knows there's someone down here with him, and it just, I think Fulci did a very good job with this scene in extending it as like, to some people it could be even overextended, but he really ran that scene out, and there's a lot of tension at it, and it's just swimming in tension, really, to me, to help this child get away from this monster. And I think Fulci did a great job with that scene, and it stuck with me how well that was done, in my opinion. Yeah, and as I wrote down, he is using some easy ingredients, but he's also using time, to let the tension set in, to let the terror happen on screen. And when I saw this film, I saw the new Blu-ray version by Blue Underground, and I think it's great quality. The picture and the sound and everything like that, it's really good. So, absolutely, this thing, once again, it's got spoilers in it, but this one I really enjoy it. All three of the Gates of Hell are ones I'm going to be recommending. So, therefore, the Beyond is going to be coming up at some point here too. But I recommend this one. It's a good one. So, anyways, that was fun. Can't wait to bring my next review for you. And it'll be interesting because I'm going to be starting to talk about some werewolves. So, anyways, have yourself an excellent day. At the time